Yeah, it might seem a little crazy, but for the third time in less than a year, I'm totally redoing my shelves. That's right, the time has come to say goodbye to the Whalens. You may remember my previous video where I assembled them and showed you how I put them together and how I redid the whole thing. So there's a whole video you could watch if you're so inclined. But essentially I bought them because they were cheap and deep. For the first time, I had space for all my books and all my shelf candy. The nice thing about these shelves were that I could have that back row of books and then a little space in front to do a display. The storage in the back, display in the front, shelf mullet was fun while it lasted, but it had to go. There were two key problems with the Whalens. One was dust and the other was display. The material of the shelves just was like a dust magnet, and with no ability to put doors on these shelves, I couldn't protect the books against the onslaught. And the display was kind of fun. You had the books in the back and the stuff in the front, but it always looked cluttered. Your eye was just drawn everywhere all at once. Another con was the vertical space. There's just too much space between shelves. You could see in the back row all that space between the top of the book and the bottom of the next shelf. So where I have 5 shelves with the Whalens, I thought I could make better use of that vertical space and maybe go all the way up to the ceiling with another system. And through all our research looking at different shelving systems, we ended up going back to that tried and true Ikea. The problem is where we live now, there's no Ikea anywhere near us. So we would have to drive a couple hours to get to the closest one and then hope they had all the parts we needed, or order and have them deliver and pay a crazy delivery fee and hope they had the parts. It's kind of a crapshoot. IKEA customer service is the worst. So it's never an easy decision. You feel like you're making a deal with the devil and going to IKEA. But that's what we did. And so this is our shelf journey where we went back to the tried and true Billy Bookcase. Now, IKEA only delivers to my corner of the world once a week. So we had to find the right time where they had all the parts and they could make a delivery. So it took a few weeks to finally get the shelves. And when we got them, we didn't even get all the doors we needed. So it was kind of a hassle, but they eventually showed up. And when they did, that meant I had to take all the books off my Whalens, clear the space, build the shelves before I'd even be able to reshelf all the books. Well, that took a minute, but I got all the shelves emptied, except for the stuff that's not books. I left all that here to show exactly how much stuff on my bookshelves were not books. That's all this stuff. And that's not to say this stuff's less important than the books, because some of this stuff is like priceless. And I love it. I love it, love it, love it. But I think the Billy bookcases are going to force me to be a little more disciplined in how much shelf candy I put out. But for a blissful few moments, the space was clear. Now, the first thing I had to do was assemble the main bookcases. We got the Billys with the extensions, and I wanted to make sure I had an equal amount of space on either side of my wall of shelves and centered them real nice before I secured them to the wall and to each other. And it's kind of fun because I almost had enough room for a 6th Billy bookshelf, but I would have had to cut into the wall, the trim of the wall, to make it happen. So I decided to stick with the 5 and center them on the wall. If you're putting together multiple shelves, you want to create one seamless unit out of all of them. So what I do is I put the first one in and I secure it to the wall, not
all the way. I get the bracket in here nice and tight, but this I keep loose. So I still have room to move the shelf back and forth, because when I connect it to the next unit, I might want it to come out a little bit or whatever. But once I have all these units secured to each other, then I go ahead and I tighten these down.
That way the whole unit is stable without the individual bookshelves fighting each other and pulling in different directions.
Oh, and I want to mention that it's a good idea to drill a pilot hole in the top of your cabinet to get this screw started. Otherwise, you're just fighting it. You're just fighting it all the way. Don't go all the way through. You definitely don't want to pop out the bottom here, which would be the top of your cabinet, but just enough to get that screw started in the right spot. Now, back in the day, the Billy Bookcases used to come with these parts. They're called, I guess, barrel fasteners. They're a post with a screw. And what they would tell you to do is to drill through one of these holes that you're not going to use for a shelf. And since these are all machined, it should line up really nicely with that hole. You drill straight through it, and then you put the post in and you tighten it down to keep it nice and snug. You see how that the shelves want to just lean the way they want to go, but with those posts in there, it'll create this, it'll close that gap. That seam will disappear. But Ikea no longer offers these with the Billy Bookcase, which pisses me off. So I had to order these on Amazon. Now, each part of this is 3/4 inch here. So together it's 1.5 inches. This barrel fastener I have is 1.5 inches across, but I want it to be a little tighter when I screw it on there, so it really pulls. So to do that, I'm going to add a washer on each side just to give it a little more bite when I secure it. And again, like I said, you want to pick a spot where you're never going to put a shelf. I'm never going to put a shelf up here at the top to have that little narrow bit. So that's where I'm going to put my first post. So here you could see I leveled it. I got this to match. This top part as even as possible. And I clamped it with this, and I use this rag so I don't mark the shelves, to get it as close and get these holes lined up as closely as possible. Now these first two holes here are for the hinges when I put the doors on. So you don't want to put your post in either of those. What you want to do is either here or any other spot where like I said, you're absolutely not going to put in a shelf. So that is going to be a good one to grab these shelves together. So you can see I got my hand up here to make sure this doesn't shift while I do it, to get these holes nice and lined up. So I keep the clamp there to hold it and get a good push it in. And like I said before, I use the washer to get a little bit more bite, and it came out the other end. I wipe away anything that sort of splintered away. So I like to use two on to join these shelves together. One up there and then one about the middle, so I can pull that bottom half together as well.
Now, on top of the main Billy bookcase, we bought the extensions. So we would have 93 inches of vertical storage. And just so you know that these extensions just fit right over the bracket in the corner. You could see how there's that long, narrow gap along the back that allows for that bracket to secure it to the wall. And you just put the extension on over that. Now, after the Billies were built, the extensions were put on and they were filled. I put on the doors I had, but not all the doors had shown up because, remember, this is Ikea and they can't do anything customer service-wise. So I had to wait a little bit to get the last of the doors. But once they came in, the shelf set was complete. I was very happy with the way it looked. I went with full glass doors in the middle 3 cabinets and half panel, half glass on the cabinets on each end. And this gave me room to display and protect from dust. And here you can see my Suntop shelf, one whole unit full of Suntop books. Right next to that, I have all my Stephen King's trades on bottom, and then they get even more limited and precious as we go up toward the top. They're the Doubleday years, and those are my signed Kings. And of course, all my other books, my Fracassis, my Mallermans, my McCammons, my McCabe's, my McCarthy's. I don't know why I went with the mix there in a row. My Chad Lutsky books, my David Wong, Paulanik, all those have space, and the half panel doors offer me the luxury of some ugly storage where I could put books that I've either not gotten to read yet or trade editions from grab bags or subscription boxes that I'm unsure about and don't really care to display. Overall, I'm thrilled it went from this to this. But whatever became of those Whalen shelves, you may be wondering? Well, they would go on to solve a whole other problem I was having in the garage. Ever since we moved, we just sort of shoved stuff in the garage on these mismatched shelves, and I was done with it. So we took the 4 shelves that were holding my books and bought 2 more, and I stacked them on top of each other to create a 9 by 16 foot wall of shelving. To extend the Whalen shelves beyond what they sell you at Costco, I had to go and buy 3D printed connectors online. But stacking the shelves also causes them to be less stable, so I had to find a way to make them as secure as possible. I got these stainless steel adjustable pipe clamps to secure the shelves to one another. And then I got these strips of metal with the holes to anchor the shelves into the studs of the wall. So you can climb on these shelves. I just wouldn't recommend it, but you could do that. Oh, one last thing I'd like to point out about my Billy bookcases is that I had this cool wainscoting in my office, and the Billy bookcases line up perfectly with that wainscoting, especially the part that is the half panel doors. I just love the way it looks. I just wanted to share that. I hope you enjoyed it. If you got any questions about my process or anything that I didn't address in this video about Billy's, Whalen's, or book addictions, just shoot in the comments, man. I'll answer you. Trust it. Stay frosty.